那接下来就首先邀请 Philippe 给我们讲一讲 W3C 关于技术和对 future 未来这个技术标准发展的一个趋势的思考。Philippe, welcome.
Thank you, Angel. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Yes, thank you for having me around. Let's see, does this work? No, this way? Yes, I think it works. Just a delay. Here we go. All right, so W3C, as of today, so as you know, it was founded by Tim Berners-Lee. And last week, he actually stepped down as director of the consortium. We are now fully controlled by our members. The new process was released last week and adopted by the director consequently of that. And by the way, I'm the co-chair of the process community group. If you have any comments on the process, you are always welcome to come to me to make them. So as of today, we have around 350 technical standards. Some of them had to be obsoleted. Some of them had to become recommendation as well. We always have standards in progress. And we are a legal entity as of January 1st, 2023 as well. So it was 2023 is quite a change for us. It's getting there. Here we go. I have to click a minute in advance. So a brief history. We spent the first 10 years at standardizing the building block of the web platform. HTTP is done at IETF. JavaScript is done at ECMA. And we standardized HTML, CSS, and DOM back then. After that, we spent time on improving the web platform, adding lots of APIs, web performance being one of them. We worked hard. Starting in 2007, we worked on the HTML video element as well. We replaced Adobe Flash. We don't need the use of a plugin anymore on the web platform. We created a testing project as well called Web Platform Test, WPT, which is used by all of the browser makers nowadays to test their browser engine as well. And anyone is welcome to contribute more tests to that as well. So today, the web is used all around the world. It's taken for granted. We use it. We don't even think about it. It's like the roads. We just use it. If we were going to stop it tomorrow, it would mean that not only we wouldn't be able to browse the web, but a lot of our apps, including native apps, would break because they are using the web platform underneath the web HTTP to access the data as well. And so here we go. So I picked a few technical topics to mention today. You will hear more during later in the day about some of those. The neural network API, I mean, of course, AI is getting a lot of press nowadays with ChatGPT. And we started a working group, a machine learning working group in 2021. Intel worked on a proposal in the community group back then, and it became mature enough to be standardized, to be put on the standardization track. At that time, they actually moved to candidate recommendation earlier this year, which means that the specification is ready, but they are now waiting for to confirm that for implementations as well. So it's not implemented in any, it's not deployed in any web browser nowadays, but you can already actually try it because you can do polyfill of the neural network API using technology such as WASM as well. And so you can do all of those. The advantage of doing that on the client side, by the way, is that you don't have to move the data back to the server. to do the processing. You move the model, you basically fetch the model in your web application, and then you compile it. It could be done synchronously or asynchronously. And then you basically run it against the data so that you can detect, for example, if there is a person in front of the camera of the device. And you can do all kind of computations. You can, by the way, click on those links. Intel made a lot of nice little demonstrations on that, and I'm sure we'll see more even later today on that. One issue that I would like to mention is the fact that the CoreML engine from Apple has the capability to use multiple devices simultaneously for the computation, while the API is right now focusing on a single device as well. So it may actually affect later on the design of the API later on. That will depend on the implementation experience we have. So another thing that the working group has been working on is the ethical principle for machine learning. So one of the big concerns that we have around the world is how are we going to apply this technology and how is it going to be used as well. I mean, one of the limits of the technology is like when it gives you a value, can you actually trust the value that it gives you? And it can actually affect people's life when it gives you the wrong value. They wouldn't be able, for example, to buy a house because the credit score would be incorrect. You could also, because of systematic deviation in your model, you can also affect a group of people in your decisions as well. So we have to be careful on how it's being used. Another example of how we build our data set, or how we build our LLM could also be potentially harmful. Like if you use personal information to train for your data set, those personal information could potentially leak from the model what is being used as well. So I need to remember to click that thing 10 seconds in advance. Here we go. Another area which is getting more and more attention, and we are never do enough. I will say we will never do enough on security on the web. But nevertheless, we are trying to. The challenge of the web platform is that you can actually fetch code from anywhere around the world and run it on your device. And you cannot trust that code, consequently. So it creates some interesting challenges when it comes down to creating application. We made a lot of progress in the recent years. Web authentication was created a few years ago with the optic of replacing passwords, where you can use the authentication system of the device to authenticate yourself on the web as well. So it's been well deployed. You can, Microsoft has it in Windows Hello. Android, it's also supporting Android, also supporting on iOS as well. You can use web authentication to remove your passwords. I mean, of course, the website has to support it, has to deploy it. So it's still getting deployed out there, but there are also already plenty of websites using it. Not the W3C one yet, unfortunately, but maybe one day we're going to be able to do it. Another area is permissions, and permissions goes into two categories. We have the permission that the user has to give for you to use some of the powerful feature of the device. I mean, a well-known one is the camera. But you also have the permission that the developers can give to third-party content that they are loading into the page as well, preventing those third-party content from potentially harmful ways as well. WebRTC has been working on end-to-end encryption of the video content. So what they do is they provide an API to access the video feed, and so that you can actually do encryption before sending it on the network as well. So those are areas of security that we have been pushing forward. And I still didn't click. Private advertising gets a lot of attention nowadays. Third-party cookies are getting removed from browsers. In fact, some of them already done it, but not now. Google Chrome is still supporting third-party cookies because of concern in Europe. The European Union recently announced an inquiry into Google activities on advertising. So it may also affect our work as well. But there is an ongoing charter being worked on right now. You can click on the link to follow the conversation on this. I'm hoping we can bring it to the AC for more review within a few weeks at most. They are still not sure exactly what proposal to go with. There are competing proposals in this space. They've been looking at web performance, implication of each of the proposals. One implies a multi-party server where you are relying on a trusted server to dispatch information to the relevant parties. And another one is using trusted execution environment, where you basically can prove by computation that only the subset of the data is being sent as well. WebRTC, the good news is it works. I mean, I remember coming back here in 2019, by the way, for the QCon conference in October 2019, where I was talking about WebRTC and how great it's going to be. And the good news is it works. In fact, sometimes it's worked better even than native apps. It's my experience on that front. So we can now do video conferencing on the web without having to install a native application, and it just works. That's pretty nice. One of the things that the group has been looking into is, of course, to expand use cases for WebRTC. So one of them has been game streaming, where they would like to support more use cases in that space. They are still working on finishing the screen capture and local recording as well, the media recording API, media stream API as well. And keep in mind that all of those APIs that I'm showing or talking about, they can be combined together as well. They're not separated. You can use WebRTC with WebAssembly, with WebGPU, and with the Web Neural Network API as well. They can be fully combined, which is one of the nice things about the web platform. Still good on time. WebAssembly. WebAssembly is going along quite well. The group is working on refining the virtual machine underneath and optimizing its execution. There is work happening on the garbage collector, for example. You can click on the link and follow the state of the proposal on that. One of the things I have to say about this working group is they are working mainly on the server side aspect of WebAssembly. So WebAssembly is a very successful technology. I mean, it was one of the main use cases for it was to take C or C++ code and transform it into WebAssembly so that you don't have to rewrite the code from scratch. So performance was not just the only use case for it as well. And it works quite well. But again, it's more successful on the server side than it is on the client side. One of the main reasons is because on the client side, it has no access to the web platform APIs that we used to love. So it has no access to WebGPU. It has no access to the DOM. You have a relatively small way to communicate with it on that. So exposing the web API to WASM remains to be done. There has been proposal being made. The Google Flutter project is one of those, for example. But the group is not really focused about that. You will not see this group, for example, coming to TPAC because they are working on the server side mainly. So they don't really interact with the other groups as such. GPU of the web. So if you remember in 2017, Apple proposed an alternative to WebGL. WebGL was designed on top of OpenGL, and OpenGL was becoming quite old as an API. on that. So they proposed the WebGL as a new approach for an API for the GPU. Plus, on top of that, they never really liked working in Chronos, so it was they pushed for this alternative, which was adopted and supported by the browser engines. So they are finishing the work. Google announced at their I/O 2023 that they are shipping it in Chrome, Android, and so on. I mean, it's available on Blink in the Blink engine. It's not yet shipping in Firefox or Safari, for example, but it's implemented in the nightly version. So by next year, it's going to be deployed everywhere on this front. Yeah, it's a slow computer. Here we go. Speaking of video being slow. So let's try to make it a little bit faster on the video side. Video transport and codecs. So the HTTP working group at IETF has been revising HTTP quite a lot. You know, the good old days where you can basically open a telnet and type directly the HTTP method right there have been gone for some time. We needed an API to basically leverage better the transport layer of web transport. That's what HTTP, that's what the web transport API has been doing for some time. It's pushing along quite well. That's done in the web transport working group, by the way. Web codecs is done in the media working group. They are developing interfaces for your various codecs. It's one of the focus of the Interop 2023 project related to testing, by the way, web codecs. So we will see a lot of uptakes of those specifications this year, thanks to the testing focus. There is a nice article written by two of our staff, video frame processing on the web, that I recommend that you look at. I believe it is getting translated in Chinese as well. What they tried to do was to see how well you can combine those APIs, all of the media-related APIs that are available on the web platform. How can you actually combine them together and take advantage of every single one of them on the client? So this article is trying different methods to do that. We have quite a large set of media APIs available in the web platform, consequently. So I recommend you read it. Colors. Colors are done pretty much. I remember 12 years ago when the movie industry was coming to me and eager to use 4K television screen, and they wanted to have HDR supported. And we only had RGB back then in terms of colors. One of our staff members, actually, who did his PhD on colors, worked hard in the CSS working group to push the space of colors forward. This was a focus of the Interop 2022. So it's deployed in all of the browser engine at this point. One of the big approach was not just to add colors to CSS, is to add colors everywhere in the Canvas API, in PNG as well. PNG is getting revised as we speak to add support for a fuller range of colors as well. So we have a full range of colors on the web platform nowadays. Fonts is getting revised. You may have seen the Emmy Award we received for fonts last year in the registration desk. But we didn't stop just because we received an Emmy Award. If you remember, 3 years ago, we refocused the group to solve the problem of large character set fonts, which is important in Asia. Just because you have to render an article doesn't mean that you have to download a 2 megabytes font just to render a small set. So they spent their first 2 years looking at competing approach on studying the performance of each approach on improving the situation. And they narrow it down to the incremental font transfer proposal. So that's the one which is getting, that's the one which has support from everyone. And it's basically you can request a subset of ranges of characters from your font instead of having to download the entire font on the client side. And the way it works is, of course, you need to get the client and the server to cooperate. You have 2 methods to do that. One is to use the HTTP range request. It's an HTTP header. And the other method is to use the HTTP method patch as well. And the patch method is getting more rapid deployment for that. And you can click, you have an explainer for it from the slide. It was sent recently to the TAC for review. A little bit on the web of data. I talked a lot about browser technology. Let me talk about the web of data. One of the very successful technology which is spreading like fire all around the world is verifiable credentials and decentralized identifier. It's a basic method for you to make a set of claims and attach to it a proof that those claims are actually correct. Of course, as you can imagine, it's relying on digital signatures to do this. So that's what verifiable credential is about. We finished it 2 or 3 years ago. DID is a new set of identifiers that do not have some of the limitation that HTTP URLs might have, which a domain name can change owner over time. And we wanted to have a reliable way to do identity, to identify things when needed. And that's what DID is trying to do. It became a recommendation last year, is getting deployed. So the community working on this is quite small. So DID is at the moment on hold in the sense that they're waiting on deployment. They are revising the verifiable credential specifications to address more use cases at this point. But it has already been deployed in a lot of applications nowadays. If you have a digital COVID vaccination record, you are probably already using it. This is from the Samsung wallet. I have a Samsung phone with a Samsung wallet. The state provide a digital certificate for vaccination, and this is it comes as a QR code. And if you actually take this QR code and decode it, it's JSON with verifiable credential in it. As well. So you may already be using it without even knowing it on that. So as I said, it's getting a lot of deployment around the world. It's getting used in all kind of contexts. Microsoft, for example, is using it for their cloud identification in Microsoft Azure. They've been they renamed it recently, but it's using verifiable credential. It's used in education. Europe is switching to digital wallet. The US is deploying this for the green card holder. So we are getting closer and closer to having digital passports as well on that. So because the technology is relatively generic, it's getting used in a lot of different contexts, and I believe it's also getting used in China as well. I was told last week that it was used in Japan, and so it's quite a successful one. Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. The group is going to provide a new version of WCAG 2.2 by the end of this year. It's as a reminder, those guidelines are being adopted by governments around the world. It will take probably a few years for the regulation to get updated in each country, but you can expect it to get regulated, to be updated. WCAG 3 is getting worked on. But there's going to be a major shift in this space for two reasons. The first is the conformance model of WCAG 3 is going to change dramatically to improve how we evaluate the conformance of a web application with regard to web accessibility, to content accessibility as well. That's one shift. And the other shift is it's no longer just applicable to the web. It's also going to be applicable to application in general as well, including native apps on that. It will take us a few years to finalize this. I don't expect this to become a recommendation for at least 5 years. And then after that, you're going to have, of course, the cycle of getting it adopted in regulation down the road. But this is going to come forward, and you should pay attention to what's happening in this space. Consequently, sustainability is a new topic at WebRTC. It started last year at TPAC. We have 2 community groups right now working in this space. It was discussed at the recent advisory committee meeting as well. One of the community group has been working on guidelines similar to the web content accessibility guidelines. They want to do web content sustainability guidelines as well. I expect a lot of conversation in this space around TPAC. It may become one of the future horizontal review where we would expect every single technology to get reviewed from that aspect. Airplane are not the only one polluting the planet. The IT industry and the web is also contributing to that because of the energy that we are using. So that will be a new topic. As a reminder, so I did this slide last week in Japan, and they asked me to use a persona. So if you're wondering what Genos is, you should click on the link. He's a manga character. But as a reminder, if you are interested in a group, you should go and visit WC/group page. That will list all of our working groups, community groups, and so on. We have around 150 groups nowadays, by the way. Most of them are community groups, but a lot is happening. If you want to keep an eye on what's coming up, one recommendation is to watch the tag repository that gets review requests from not only the various group, but also browser project as well. So it gives you an early sight of what's coming up down the road. We use GitHub, so all of our work is happening in the open on GitHub. As long as you can access GitHub, you're fine, and never hesitate to ask us if you need help. You know, the WebRTC staff is here to help you. So please come forward, and we'll do our best to help you in connecting with others as well. On that. TPAC 2023, so I know it's a little bit far from China because it's going to be in Europe. It's going to be online as well if you cannot attend because of your travel budget. It's still going to be online. You will have the advantage not to spend 20 hours in a plane to get there. But really, if you can attend, please come. I mean, nothing replaces the coffee breaks and the conversations happening outside of the room as well. And you get to know more of the WebRTC staff as well. And if you have an idea that you would like to push forward and get support with the community, as a reminder, we have breakout session during TPAC, where you can actually propose a new topic. We will give you a room for 1 hour to make your case to the rest of the community as well. And I believe that's yes, I believe that's it. Thank you for listening to me. And I think I was over time.
大家对 Philippe 的分享有没有什么问题？中文问也没有关系，不要害羞。或者是哪一部分他讲的时候是不是略过了细节？大家对具体的进展感兴趣，也可以问他。
Philip, web always put like privacy as the first concern, right? And we have the rising requirement on the web for the performance, how to balance the privacy and performance.
Yes, privacy and performance, that's a good topic. I don't know if privacy is getting as much in the way of performance. I think what gets in, privacy gets in the way of being able to use the features more often than performance itself. On that, security will get in the way of performance, where you have to do a various type of checks.
Always try to avoid like fingerprints, so this is a privacy concern, right? So when we try to expose some hardware features to the web API, we may think about this, but otherwise it will have a lot of fingerprint issue there.
But fingerprinting is not a performance issue. It's accessing the features. I mean, once you can access the, for example, because you have to ask the user to access the camera, but once you have access to the camera, it doesn't get in the way of the performance. So
not exactly. So let me take an example for web GPU. So we need to expose a lot of hardware capability there. But due to privacy concern, we have to think all the hardware the same. Otherwise, you can know it's like NVIDIA's GPU, it's Intel's GPU, they are different.
But isn't that a problem at the permission level?
No, but we couldn't require a lot of permission once you need an API, right?
Yes, I realize that for permissions, you cannot ask too many questions to the user, otherwise they stop answering on that. But I think this has to be worked at the permission level, where you need to be able to bundle the permissions so that you can actually figuring out what to ask the users. And remember, with permission, depending on what you do, you don't have to ask as many permissions. For example, if the user install the web application on their device, you can make some assumption already that you cannot make when you're running the code from the web in an open environment.
For PWA, but not for general web pages.
For general web page, yes, I agree. I agree. You have to be a bit more careful. But again, I see that to me it has to be solved as a permission issue more than a performance.
When you visit a web page, you need to grant the accessibility, grant permission to turn the APIs. So what would be your experience for that? So that's a challenge.
Yeah, I agree that's a challenge, but we need to improve that. And the permission API is still getting deployed and worked on. And we need to get more experience. So this is a type of questions that we can answer. I know that if you ask questions about a web API to my mother, she won't be able to answer it because she's too old. And yet, we should be able to actually allow her to use those capabilities as well. Yeah. So we're going to have to balance that.
Okay. Yeah, I really hope that across the web or the standards, we can have some a good solution across all the APIs. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.